Hey everybody, welcome back. I wanted to discuss a little bit more about what seems to be the hot topic the last few days, and especially here on the channel here. And I wanted to discuss a little bit about, because I've been hearing. I mean, we all know about the Coyotes and they're losing the lease to play in Gila River Arena next June. And a lot of people have been wondering, what's going to happen? Where could they go? Well, I wanted to discuss a little bit about, now there's still rumors that they may, they're trying to get something worked out in Tempe, but that's, I really don't know how logistically that's going to work, because if they can't play in Gila River Arena after the end of this upcoming season, where are they going to play for the next 2 years? Because from what I was hearing, it's going to take at least 3 years to potentially build a new arena in Tempe. And where are they going to get the money? I don't know. But I wanted to discuss a little bit about the potential benefits to them either staying in Arizona or moving to Houston, which has been a big topic, or what seems to be what a lot of people would love to see, them possibly moving to Quebec. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the benefits of all of them. Now, of course, the benefits to staying in Arizona. I mean, if you're trying to move to, if you're trying to move to Tempe, you've got, you don't really have to move very far. But again, the big thing for me in Arizona has been they've never turned a profit in any time they've been there. This is their 26th year in Arizona. They have never ever made money in Arizona. And that's where I wonder, it's like, do you really want to try to keep this team? I mean, even moving them to Tempe, is it really worth it? Are they ever going to make any money in Arizona? I mean, I've never seen a team necessarily that they've bent over backwards for this much. But I get they're trying to make it work. They want to make it work in Arizona. They've done their damnedest to keep this afloat in Arizona. And I mean, especially with, they're bringing this back. They're bringing the Kachina back, and and right after, and not long after they announced that they're bringing this logo back, which is, back in the day when they first came into the league, this logo was the laughing stock. People looked at this logo and they're like, "What in the hell is that?" And they did the logo, this jersey style. They laughed at it. It was crazy. I mean, it was completely panned and laughed at in 1990. What was it? 96. And now, of course, they bring the Kachina back, they bring this jersey back as a third, and it's a huge seller and everybody likes it. I guess that's the difference between how it was in the mid 90s and now. A logo and a jersey that people laughed at back when they first came in 26 years ago now. Now they love it. But, and it would be a shame to see this logo come back for 1 year and then it would disappear, because I'm pretty sure, if they move, they're not going to keep the Coyotes name. But so I mean, there are some benefits to staying in Arizona. You don't really have to move very far, but I don't see it working out. They've tried and tried and tried, and the fan support's just not there. And yes, they've never really been very good the entire time they've been in Arizona. Winning can cure a lot of things. So, I mean, you never know. If the Arizona Coyotes had the kind of winning culture that, you know, even some of the other teams in the division, like Vegas, or like Anaheim, Los Angeles, you know, they might have drawn fans in. But I mean, they've never really been that successful. Which, I mean, it sucks, you know, because I mean, I've been to Gila River Arena. It's a nice arena. You know, I mean, when we went down there to visit my wife's sister-in-law, or my wife's sister, my sister-in-law, my wife's sister-in-law, no, my wife's sister, when she lived down there, we got, one of the things I wanted to do was, and now granted, I mean, this was during the off season, so I mean, you know, it wasn't like I could go to a Coyotes game, but I wanted to see the arena. And she was living, you know, we were in Tucson, so we drove, you know, only planning on doing it one time. We drove down, you know, and I got to see the arena. The arena looked gorgeous. And then we saw that one of all of our favorite comedians, Gabriel Iglesias, was playing a show at Gila River Arena the day before we were supposed to leave. And so we were like, oh, that'd be kind of fun. So we were only planning on going down there one time. Well, then it was the next day. We woke up and my wife said, you know, hey, she's like, get up. I'm like, what are we doing? We're like, we're driving back to Glendale. We're getting tickets for the show. So we drive back down. We get tickets for the show. We ended up going down there 3 times. And we got to see, you know, one of the funniest comedians out there. So, you know, I was planning only really seeing the arena once. I got to see it 3 times, and it was really cool. And I got to be in the arena. I got to see some of the, you know, it's a nice looking arena. It really is. But fans don't seem to flock to it. You know, they don't, you know, I mean, you know, it's just, fans don't seem to like to go to Coyotes games. So moving them to Tempe, which could be a possibility, but you're still trying to figure out, where are you playing for 2 years? Glendale obviously does not want the Coyotes anymore. They were, I mean, the city of Glendale has been losing, I mean, not just the Coyotes losing money. The city has been pumping money into this franchise, and they've been losing their ass too. And they said, you know, they finally reached the point and they said, no, we're done. We can't do it anymore. So that's why I don't necessarily see them. I don't see a whole lot of benefits to them staying in Arizona, especially with the fact they've never made money there. Now, a lot of people have suggested Houston. Houston, it's a big market. It's a really big market. They have a building there. The owners of the Houston Rockets love hockey, and I think they would probably love to have a hockey team. And there are benefits to that. There's benefits to moving the Coyotes to Houston, because the Coyotes are in the Central Division. They wouldn't have to move. They wouldn't have to move divisions. Wouldn't have to move. They'd be moving from one place to another. But they wouldn't be moving divisions. They could stay in the Central Division. You would have 2 teams in Texas, so you would have an instant rivalry, an instant in-state rivalry with the Dallas Stars, which could be fun. That could be really, really fun to see. But the thing about Houston, and I don't know, and I know the owner of the Rockets, they got a lot of money. I don't know if the owners of Houston would be willing to shell out the amount of money that it is probably going to take to get this team to take this team over, to pay what it's worth, cover their losses, everything, and then move them to Houston. They have an arena there, yes. They're a huge market. Big city. But as I mentioned in a previous video, we saw the NHL tried it twice in Atlanta. Atlanta's a huge market, especially the second time around. The Thrashers stayed longer than the Flames. But it didn't work. They never were really that good. They had one playoff appearance. The fans, and even during the one playoff appearance, the fans didn't really, they were lucky if they filled the arena, if the arena was half full. The fans didn't really flock to it. Now, were there Thrasher fans? Absolutely there were, just like there are Coyotes fans. Absolutely, they love the team. But what happened in Atlanta is the same thing here. It's literally the same thing, only Arizona's got 9 months to figure out what the hell to do. Atlanta, literally, 6 weeks before the season started, found out, oh yeah, you got no arena to play in. So the NHL had to scramble. So they had to move a team from a very big market in Atlanta, Georgia, and they moved them up to Winnipeg. And the fan support in Winnipeg was immediate. 14,000 sets of season tickets sold in 5 minutes. That's insane. It's insane to think that. I can just imagine how the operators had to feel. It's like, holy crap, we're getting just swamped with calls. Hey, we want tickets. We want tickets. I couldn't imagine being a ticket operator up in Winnipeg for that first season. And they've been there for 10 years now. They're going into their 11th year in Winnipeg. And and that's as long as they were down in Atlanta. So, and the fan support was immediate. They sell out every home game. They love the Jets up in Winnipeg. Is it a small market? Yes, it is. In comparison to Atlanta, damn right it is. It's a real small market. But the fan support is huge. I don't know if Houston would give that kind of fan support. Are there probably hockey fans in Houston? Yeah. But they've had hockey in Houston before. They've had they've never had an NHL team. But they've had AHL teams. They've had was it a WHA team? The Houston Aeros that Gordie Howe and his sons played for. So they've had hockey in Arizona. They've never had an NHL team, but they have had hockey in Arizona. Ugh, I say Arizona. I'm hung up on Arizona for some reason. They've had hockey in Houston. I meant Houston. They've had hockey in Houston. They've never had an NHL team in Houston, but they have had hockey there. And they've all ended up leaving. The Houston Aeros, whether it was the AHL team or the WHA team or any other, minor league team that they've had there, it didn't work. They were there for a little while, but they weren't a huge draw. Even when Gordie Howe and his sons played for the Houston Aeros of the I think it was the WHA. I think. But they weren't. They drew what, 7,000-8,000 fans a game, which for WHA back in the day, that's a pretty good crowd. But that's not going to work in the NHL. So I don't know if the fan support would be there for them in Houston. But the benefits are they wouldn't have to change divisions. They would have an in-state rivalry with the Dallas Stars, which could be exciting. It really could be exciting to see Dallas and Houston butt heads like that and be division rivals. That would be fun. But I'm not sure if the fan support is there. Now, Quebec. That's where I'd like to see them end up. I would love to see them end up in Quebec. They lost their team in 1995, and they moved to Colorado. They lost the team not because the fans didn't support them. The fans freaking loved them. They loved the Nordiques. They moved for two main reasons. The Canadian dollar, the low Canadian dollar, was a big problem in the mid 90s. I mean, Winnipeg left, went to Arizona. Quebec left, went to Colorado. There was talk about Edmonton Edmonton being in trouble, Calgary being in trouble. It was the mid 90s, the mid to late 90s were really bad for Canadian hockey teams because the Canadian dollar was horrible at the time. And they almost lost more than half of their teams in the mid 90s. I said Winnipeg left, Quebec left, Edmonton and Calgary were in trouble. It was not good. It was not a good time. But the low Canadian dollar was a big issue. The second one was the arena. Le Colisée in Quebec, it was a small arena. It was smaller in comparison to arenas that you were starting to see pop up. And it was an old arena. It was old. It needed to be torn down and it needed to be replaced. And they couldn't get the funding for a new arena back in the mid 90s. And like I said, trying to do public money for arenas, it's risky. It's it's a risky thing. We do that a lot here in Minnesota. We have publicly funded arenas here in Minnesota, and it's always a touchy subject. It's always a touchy subject, because a lot of people here, they don't like paying for billionaires arenas, and so it's always been kind of a touchy subject here about publicly funded arenas. And that's one thing about, I may not be the biggest fan of the Dallas Cowboys, but Jerry Jones, public money didn't build that stadium that his Cowboys play in. He funded that himself. $2 billion he put into that of his own money. Public money did not go into Jerry World. And that's one cool thing about that was he paid for that out of his own pocket. Where a lot of these other owners, they could kick in a good chunk of change to help build these arenas. But a lot of times they don't want that. They want it's public funding. So that's the main reason why Quebec left in the first place. They couldn't get an arena deal done. Sounds a lot like how Hartford, the negotiations with Hartford went. They had an arena deal done, and then their owner just decided to be a douchebag. But again, they couldn't get the funding to the arena in that time, because if they would have been able to have gotten the funding for the Videotron Center in 1995, the Quebec Nordiques would have stayed in the NHL. They still would have been there. They would have played another couple of years in Quebec, and then they probably would have moved into the Videotron Center. Probably 1990. By 1998, by the 1990, 97, 98 season, maybe the 1998, 99 season, they would have moved into the Videotron Center, and they still would have been in the NHL. That's the main reason they left, because it wasn't because of fan support. Fan support in Quebec was nuts. They won 12 games one year, and the fans still were selling that place out. 12 games out of an 84-game season, you win 12 games, and you're still drawing 15,000 fans a game? Really? If the Minnesota Wild here did that, I don't think they'd draw. I don't think you'd see that. I think you'd see. You never know. You might. We're kind of crazy about hockey here. We're the state. We're called the state of hockey for a reason. We might have still drawn 15,000, 16,000 fans a game if we were a team that lost 12 games. We'd definitely be a great team if we only lost 12 games. If we won 12 games, we'd probably still put 15,000 fans a game if we only won 12 games in an 82-game season. But it was crazy, and they were very sad when they lost the Nordiques. And that's why, honestly, I think Quebec would make sense. Houston makes a whole lot of sense. It really does, because logistically, you don't have to move them. You don't have to move them, change divisions. They can stay in the Central Division. You'd have an instant in-state rivalry with the Dallas Stars. I'm just not sure whether or not, number one, the owner would put up the kind of money that it's going to take. And I don't know if the fan support would be there. That's my only question about Houston is, will fans go and watch them? I don't know. In Quebec, it's a guaranteed win. You would have instant fan support. We saw it in Winnipeg. When the Winnipeg Jets were, when the Atlanta Thrashers were moved back to Winnipeg, it was an instant draw. Instant draw. The fans loved it. They sold out season tickets in 5 minutes. You would see that again in Quebec. I truly believe you would see that again in Quebec. The fan support would be crazy. They have a nice arena up there that's all ready to go. All they need is a team. I think they would have owners immediately, because Quebecor, the corporation up there, I think, they were willing to spend $500 million to join the NHL with Vegas. They put the application in. They both were there. It was supposed to be them. It was supposed to be them and Vegas. But again, the Canadian dollar played a part in that, and they took it away. But it wouldn't cost them $500 million to get the Coyotes. Okay. Sorry about that. Had to deal with something real quick. But yeah, the Nordiques were, for a team that was that bad up until really they left, the fan support's there. I think they'd be a huge draw. The fans would flock to them. Season tickets would be insane. I think you might sell 17,000 season tickets in less time than even Winnipeg did up in Quebec. So I think that's the one big difference between the Coyotes moving to Houston and potentially moving to Quebec. Will fans support them in Houston? Maybe. And I don't know if the owner would put that kind of money that it's going to cost to, bring them to Houston. You never know. He might though. But in Quebec, it's virtually guaranteed. The fan support would be there. The arena's nice, and the fans would flock to it. So personally, I'd love to see them end up in Quebec. Chances are they end up in Houston, but we'll have to wait and see. We get, it's about 9 months before we're really going to know for sure where they're going to end up. So, that's just kind of my thoughts, and again, we've had some good dialogue about this, but again, let me hear your guys' thoughts. Which situation's better? Do you think Houston's better, or do you think Quebec's better? Let me know your guys' thoughts. Do you think the fans in Houston would flock to see an NHL team, or do they not? How does Quebec respond? Do they make a big play to try to get the Coyotes and get them up to Quebec? We'll have to find out. But it's definitely going to be an interesting time to see exactly what happens. Whether or not they stay in Arizona, which I mean, maybe, I'd say the odds are slim, but it could happen. Or if they end up in Houston, or if they end up in Quebec. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. And if there's anybody new that just happened to come across one of my videos, if you like them, I'd love it if you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. The more people that subscribe, it gets my channel out there. It would be really cool. I enjoy having everybody here. And again, let me know your guys' thoughts on do they stay in Arizona? Do they move to Houston? Or do they move to Quebec? And what place do you think would be the best fit for them? I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. So again, if you're just cruising around YouTube and you happen to come across one of my videos on my channel, if you like the videos, I'd love it if you hit the subscribe button. It would be awesome. I would love to have you here. And I will see you guys again real soon.